The electrician's voice didn't sound curious. It sounded unsettled. Sir, there's a hidden safe inside the wall. For a moment I couldn't process the words. I was standing in a grocery store parking lot, holding a carton of milk, when the world shifted under my feet. My name is Daniel Mercer, and it had been exactly 1 year since my wife, Claire, died in what everyone called a tragic accident. Her old office at home had remained untouched. I couldn't bring myself to repaint it, let alone remove her books. The faint smell of her perfume still lingered in the wood grain. I didn't know there was a safe, I said carefully. It's behind the outlet panel, the electrician replied. And it's definitely intentional. Intentional. Claire had never mentioned a safe. Not once in 12 years of marriage. I left the cart where it stood and drove home faster than I should have. As I walked into the house, the hallway felt longer than usual. The office door was open. Drywall dust covered the floor. A square of exposed concrete stared back at me. The electrician stepped aside. The safe door was already open. Inside were documents. A passport. And something that made my stomach drop. A second wedding ring. Not mine. In that instant, every late night Claire worked, every unexplained phone call, every soft smile she gave when I asked too many questions, replayed. And none of it made sense anymore. I didn't touch the ring at first. It sat there on top of the documents like it had been placed deliberately, not hidden in panic but stored with care. The electrician cleared his throat. Should I leave you alone, sir? Yes, I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. When the door shut behind him, the house felt unnaturally quiet. I picked up the passport. Claire's photo. Different last name. Issued 3 years before we met. Stamped multiple times. Country she told me she'd never visited. My pulse didn't spike. It slowed. Because panic clouds memory. Clarity sharpens it. 12 years of marriage replayed in fragments. The way she insisted on keeping that room private. The way she handled finances herself, to stay organized. The occasional weekends she said she needed space to reset. I had trusted her completely. Not blindly. Deliberately. The cash inside the safe was bundled, crisp, recent. At least 200,000. This wasn't old history. This was active. Under the passport was a thin folder labeled only with a date. 6 months before her death. I opened it. Property records. A house. Not in our city. Not in her maiden name. But in the name from the passport. My breathing changed then, not with heartbreak but with something colder. If Claire had another life, it hadn't ended with her accident. It had been prepared. And suddenly her death didn't feel random anymore. It felt timed. I locked the safe and carried the folder downstairs like it might explode if I moved too fast. Claire's accident had been ruled a brake failure. Wet road. Sharp turn. No witnesses. I had accepted it because grief makes you obedient. But now I was looking at a second passport, a second property, and $200,000 in clean bills. That isn't a coincidence. That's preparation. I opened my laptop and searched the property address listed in the documents. Small coastal town. 3 hours away. Purchased 18 months ago. Paid in cash. Owner, the alternate name from the passport. The closing attorney listed on the documents made my jaw tighten. I recognized it. It was the same law firm that handled our estate planning. Claire hadn't just hidden something. She had structured it. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead I answered. Silence. Then a voice I didn't recognize. You found it, the man said. My spine went rigid. Who is this? Pause. She didn't want you involved, he replied calmly. But now that you've opened the safe, that's no longer possible. My mind didn't race. Calculated. You're talking about my wife. Yes. The voice didn't hesitate. She wasn't who you thought she was, Daniel. The line went dead. I stood there in my kitchen, the house we built together, the life I believed was solid, and realized something terrifying. The hidden safe wasn't the secret. Was the trigger. And someone else knew I had pulled it. I didn't call the police. That's what the old version of me would have done. The grieving husband, still clinging to the idea that the system always makes sense. But the voice on the phone wasn't panicked. It was composed. Which meant this wasn't a random blackmail attempt. It was procedural. I replayed the call in my head. No background noise. No urgency. Just information. She didn't want you involved. Involved in what? I drove to the coastal property that same night. 3 hours of highway gave me too much time to think. Claire hated long drives. She used to say they made her restless. So why buy a house that far away? The property sat at the edge of a quiet marina, modest, not flashy. Lights off, curtains drawn. I didn't knock. Instead, I circled to the back patio. The lock had been changed recently. Not abandoned. Maintained. Through the window I saw furniture. Fresh flowers. A laptop on the table. Someone had been here recently. My phone vibrated again. Same unknown number. "You shouldn't be there," the voice said calmly. I didn't react. "You followed me?" "No," he replied. "We assumed you would." Wait. The word settled heavy. "If this is about money," I said evenly, "you miscalculated. It's not about money." Pause. "It's about what your wife was protecting you from." My jaw tightened. "Then start explaining." Silence. Then, "Come inside." The front door unlocked. By itself. And for the first time since Claire died. I wasn't sure I had known her at all. The door opened slowly, not dramatic, controlled. I stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of salt and fresh coffee. Not abandoned. Not staged. Lived in. A man sat at the dining table. Mid-40s. Clean suit. Calm eyes. No visible weapon. "You're not surprised," I said. "I don't get paid to be," he replied evenly. "But, so this wasn't personal." "You've been watching me," I said. "Yes." "For how long?" "Since the accident." The word landed differently now. "You mean the brake failure?" He studied me for a moment, measuring something. "It wasn't a brake failure," he said quietly. My pulse didn't spike. It narrowed. "She was being followed," he continued. "For months. She thought keeping you in the dark would protect you." "That's not protection," I said flatly. "That's deception." He nodded once. She agreed. But she believed distance was safer than disclosure. I stepped closer to the table. "Safer from who?" He slid a file across the surface. "From people who believed your wife had something they wanted." Inside the folder were transaction logs. Offshore transfers. Company shells. All tied to a consulting firm Claire supposedly worked part-time for before we met. "She wasn't just an architect," he said. "She specialized in forensic financial tracing." I froze. She uncovered something big. Big enough that walking away wasn't an option. "And the house?" I asked. "Contingency. And the safe?" "Insurance." I closed the file slowly. "And the accident?" He didn't blink. "That wasn't random." The room felt colder. "If this wasn't random," I said quietly, "then someone wanted her gone." He met my eyes. "Yes." The word hung between us. Gone. Not lost. Not tragic. Removed. "Who?" I asked quietly. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and placed a tablet on the table, turning it toward me. A list of transactions scrolled across the screen. Layered shell corporations, redirected infrastructure funds, government contracts quietly overbilled. My stomach tightened. "These are public works projects," I said. "They were," he replied. "Until money started vanishing." "And Claire traced it." "Yes." I leaned back slowly. "And she didn't tell me because?" "Because you're clean," he said simply. "No offshore exposure. No suspicious holdings. She wanted you insulated." "Insulated? From corruption? Or from consequences?" "Why contact me now?" I asked. "Because when you opened the safe you triggered a contingency flag." "Meaning?" "Meaning the people who were monitoring Claire's digital footprint now know someone accessed her backup trail." I exhaled slowly. "So I'm exposed?" "Yes." He held my gaze. "But you're also in a position she never expected." I didn't like the sound of that. "What position?" He tapped the screen again. 40% of the shell company she used to trace the money? It was quietly transferred to a secondary beneficiary. My chest tightened. "Who?" He didn't look away. "You." Silence filled the room. "She put assets in my name?" I asked. "Not assets," he corrected. "Leverage." And suddenly my grief shifted into something sharper. Because this wasn't just about what she hid. It was about what she left me to finish. I stared at the tablet for a long time. 40%. Not a controlling stake, but not insignificant either. "She made me part of it," I said quietly. Without asking. The man didn't argue. "She didn't want you involved. But she knew if something happened to her, the leverage couldn't disappear. And she thought I'd just step into this? She hoped you wouldn't have to." I stood and walked toward the window looking out at the marina. Calm water. Quiet boats. Peaceful surface. Beneath it, movement. What exactly did she uncover? I asked. Embezzled infrastructure funds routed through layered contractors. The kind of network that survives because no one connects the dots. And she connected them. Yes. And they killed her. He didn't correct me this time. My hands tightened at my sides, not with rage but with precision. What do they think now? I asked. They think you're grieving. Uninformed. Harmless. That almost made me smile. Harmless. They don't know about the leverage transfer yet? No, he said. That part was hidden inside a dormant clause. Only activated if the safe was opened. Claire had known me well enough to predict one thing. Eventually I would start asking questions. What are my options? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Walk away. Liquidate quietly. Stay invisible. And the other option? He met my eyes. Finish what she started. Silence settled between us again. Grief had shaped me for a year. But this felt different. This felt like direction. I didn't answer him right away. Grief makes you reactive. But leverage requires patience. For a year, I had replayed Claire's accident in my head like a broken recording. The rain, the curve, the phone call from the hospital. Now I understood something colder. She hadn't just been hiding money. She had been hiding a war. They think I'm harmless, I said quietly. Yes. And if I liquidate? They walk away untouched. I looked back at the marina. Calm surface. Invisible currents. Claire didn't leave me money. She left me proof. Transaction trails. Internal memos. Signatures that didn't match timing. Contracts backdated by days. It wasn't enough for criminal conviction. But it was enough for exposure. And exposure destroys faster than prison. I turned to him. I don't want revenge, I said evenly. He studied me carefully. I want accountability. There's a difference. Over the next 3 months I moved carefully. Anonymous disclosures to federal auditors. Structured leaks through investigative journalists. Strategic board pressure on companies tied to the shells. No dramatic confrontations. No reckless moves. Just pressure. Quiet, targeted pressure. 6 executives resigned. 2 firms collapsed under federal investigation. Contracts were frozen. Assets seized. No one could trace it back to me. At Claire's grave, I stood alone one evening and finally understood her silence. She didn't lie to protect secrets. She lied to protect me. I finished it, I said quietly. The wind carried nothing back. But for the first time in a year, the replay in my head stopped. Because the truth didn't break my marriage. It revealed it.